So, Alex, pleasure to have you here for the Morson Sports podcast. It's been a while since we've caught up, and obviously you've been a massive mentor to, not just the academy graduates coming through the system, but the veterans of the game, the likes of Byron McGuigan transitioning from a player to a coach. But let's go back to the beginning with you. Who were some of your biggest mentors in your early life? And obviously your brother, he played rugby as well.
Yeah.
So you were getting that support, both of you, from a young age.
Yeah, brother, mother, I guess it is with most people. They have the family as the support base. But a little anecdote, I guess, in terms of how I got into sport in general, because it was never really my intention. I was like a weedy kid, a weedy 6-year-old kid.
Can't imagine that.
No, I was, mate, yeah. I've had years to work on this fine middle-aged man that you see before you. My brother, when I was 6, was an 8-year-old man-child. Like, he was a behemoth, right? And he had hyperactivity and ADHD. So my parents were like, right, we've got to get him into something where he can channel all his size and enthusiasm, which was rugby. So I got taken along in the back of the car as a 6-year-old. I was too young, shouldn't have been playing. So as you can imagine, and it's Littleborough, this is under the shadow of the M62 and the foot of the Pennines, like arse end of nowhere type of place. Always raining, worst of the weather, and I get there and I do this first session. As you can imagine, I'm 6 and I'm weeding, it's raining, bog of a pitch, and I come off when I'm crying. I'm like, I don't want to do it, Mum. And she's like, what? Do what? I don't want to play rugby, no one passes me the ball. And she's like, well, go and take it off him. So that's what I did.
Some stern motherly advice there.
Yeah, just get her back out there, that's the best way, innit? Buckle up, knuckle down. And learnt to tackle from a very early age, and it was tackling that put me into an early retirement in later life. But not that I'd turn the clocks back. I had a lot of fun banging people around for 20 years, and so it's my brother that got me into it. My brother that became and still is one of my rocks, I guess, that I look to lean on in difficult times, whether it be coaching now or playing then, because it's the one person that gives me straight up honesty, which I think is important.
Yeah, because that big brother relationship, most of the time when two brothers go into sport, it's the big brother that the younger brother idolises and always wants to chase and want to be like.
Yes,
was that the case when you were younger as well?
And still is. Like, he's 47, I'm 45, and there's still that sibling rivalry amongst us, although it's a bit more tongue-in-cheek now. But every time we go down to the house, like whether it's Monopoly or table tennis,
competitive all day.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. And we both played for the same team, which was glorious for a couple of years. Sale. It was this team, and I was 18 and he was 20, and he was in the first team, and I was obviously wanted his position. He's the same position as me, so we used to go out training a couple of nights of the week just together, aside from the team, and race each other and stuff like that. And as it transpired, when I got into the first team, he got an opportunity somewhere else, and I think that fitted us both. So we were both playing first team rugby, but not competing for the same position.
When was the moment, I'm guessing when he was starting to take it very seriously and decided he wanted that as a professional career, was it not long after that you was going to follow in his footsteps, or was there a specific moment where it was like, that is what I'm going to do for the rest of my professional career? I'm going to be working in rugby as a player and now as DOR as well.
Yeah, we are flick-flacking here in terms of timelines, aren't we? Like, I've gone back from 6 to forward till I was 18. Somewhere in between the two, I think we're around 15, and we both got sporting scholarships for Kirkham. Really good school, Kirkham Grammar School. And at that point, it was that summer we had off, and we had landscaping jobs. Just to get some money, really. We had some kind of farm equipment. We lived on a farm ourselves, so we were touting ourselves around as landscape gardeners. We weren't, but we knew how to use a mower and a strimmer. So we'd get up and we'd train. This summer, he was in line for England under 18s. I was in line for England under 16s that next year. And we'd get up and we'd go weight training. We'd do 10 hours of landscape gardening, and then we'd train again. And just eat like truckloads of food, and we ended up putting on like half a stone and of pure muscle mass, 4 or 5 Ks of muscle mass, and got really fit. So we were kind of professionally training at kind of 15 and 17 at that time, as we went into Kirkham, and then it kind of kicked on from then. We believed that you know, if we're going to have a go at it, that we train harder than everyone else, that we'd be more dedicated, that we'd be more committed and more enthused. And if it didn't work, we'd go to uni. But we wanted to give ourselves that chance of pro sport. We didn't say that to my mum, by the way, because she wanted us to go to uni for the money she spent.
Right.
But for us, it was a little pact that we made together, and it stood us pretty well the test of time.
Well, I mean, it's a cheat code in a way for you both, because you have to have motivation, dedication, 7 days a week, 8 if it was possible, because it's a lifestyle that isn't always attractive to the younger person to give up. Going out with your friends, the social events. You had someone there to keep you in check. Not that you needed it, but you had someone to follow in terms of that discipline. Would you say that without him, you might not have been in the position where you are today?
Well, 100%. And without some of his gifted but on the spectrum mental disorders, they're not disorders, they're, like I say, it's OCD and it's hyperactivity, because he's incredibly intelligent, my brother. He's able to obsess on certain things with a kind of, a good intelligence, like he works in the banks now and earns fortunes investing in money. Without that kind of drive for him to drag me along with him, of course I would have been looking to go and hang around the local spa with my mates as opposed to run round a track and chase him round a track. So yeah, I owe a lot of my existence today where I am down to having him as an example.
Sale Sharks, your debut for them was in 1998, I believe. Wow. It's a long time ago now. I'm not trying to make you feel old or anything like that. It's a different,
mate, you don't have to. I feel old enough. You don't have to make me feel old.
But do you remember your thoughts and feelings ahead of that? Was it a mixture of big nerves and big excitement? Did you manage to cancel out those nerves before you went on the pitch?
No, always. I still get it. I still get the jitters. I still get the butterflies, the anxiety, the fear. That doesn't go away. In fact, I'd only say over time, the more times you are negatively exposed to a traumatic event, physically or emotionally, the greater chance you have of a similar event triggering those latent emotions in you. And the more you try and run away from that, the greater a problem it becomes. Like, you've got to open the door to it. You've got to just say, oh, I recognise that. I remember that. And then do it anyway.
Is that mentality you learnt over a period of times? Did you feel like you might have been running away from that emotion? Or is that something that you wanted to be aware of from the get-go? You wanted to approach those scary feelings and, whether it be on a match day, whether it be transitioning from when you got injured into the coaching game, these are all new and daunting experiences, aren't they?
Yeah, the novel experiences that have a threat to your existence, so say the scientists, are the things that cause you stress, right? So you take away the novelty factor, you've seen it before, less stress. You take away the fact that it could be a threat to your existence. By that I mean your career. You take away because you've got a strong enough support base. Like, I know my missus is always going to be there for me, and my kid is, and my brother is. Then it becomes less of a worry, more of a challenge. Do you see what I mean? Like, you can embrace it then. You can say, well, yeah, it's there. Like, of course, I've worked hard for this, or whatever it may. I've worked hard every week for the chance to perform, for the lads to chance to perform at a weekend. But it's much, you can go into it free. Yeah. That's all you truly want. I'm not saying that happens all the time. It doesn't. Like, there's many occasions, and there will be again, where the nerves and, worrying about what could happen or thinking about what has happened, like the couple of performances that you've gone in the weeks before, affects your state of mind on that game day. And that's for you to wrestle, like I say, to recognise, to understand what they are, and then try and enjoy the moment, because they're too few. I mean, I've had a few, but there's still too few. I don't think there'll be enough in my lifetime to sate me.
You know, anything that's worthwhile in life, it's going to come with those nerves
Yeah.
and jitters. The
Yeah.
best moments of anyone's life is something that's usually very, very scary, and you have to push yourself to that place. I'm wondering, what was the feeling like in comparison to your Sale debut? Because this is your club.
Yeah.
This is the club that you've loved from a young age, compared to your country, compared to playing for England. Was it that big of a step up, or did you feel like because you've been exposed to the crowds here at Sale, you'd idolised this club for a long time, did it not feel as big of a deal?
Definitely first time I played for Sale, you know, I can still remember it coming on at the pitch at Haywood Road. Was a nerve-wracking experience. More recently, but it's such a long time ago. More recently, I can only talk of coaching experiences and the big games that I've been involved with here. I felt to weigh on me more than the European Championship games that we've had at Saracens, and that's because it just matters more to me here at this point of my life, with my family being here. And I guess it being, you know, a very intentional decision to move away from a very stable environment into one which is growing and uncertain in a positive way. You know, I think that the change and the uncertainty which is abundant in professional rugby in the North creates an avenue and opportunity. So I mean, it's a positive way, but it's still, it's less. There's still a lot less things that I've got a process behind that back down in the old organisation you knew worked. Here it's different, and every organisation, every team's different, and at the moment we haven't found our feet. So I'm enjoying that process, but it's not an easy one.
You know, you were a leader from a young age.
Yeah.
20 years old, you were Sale Sharks captain. Where did those qualities come from at such a young age?
That'll be my dad then.
But did you feel ready for that? Did you feel like, absolutely,
No,
I
you're
should
never
be
ready.
giving out orders to the team at this point?
No. I mean, you lead. Personally, I lead from the heart, very much so. I was saying things that I felt needed to be said, and that's regardless. I'm talking principles and values here, not strategy and tactics. And I had the body at the time that could back up those words with actions. You know, I'd say, come follow me, and I'd go and do it. But I guess the confidence to lead, like my old man was a motivational speaker. He's never had a job. He's always been an entrepreneur and had his own businesses. He's 85 now with dementia, so gone are his days of orating. But back in the day, he could hold a room. It certainly was a big influence on me in terms of how powerful words can be. And he used to make me stand up on a chair when I was 13 to say my speeches after the Lancashire under-13s, like it was back in the day. I had a tie present and you had to say thank you to the girls in the kitchen, thank you to the opposition team, say a few words. So from an early age, he had me building confidence in front of the family, you know, at dinner time by standing up on my chair and having to say my speech out, look people in the eye. So from an early age, I learned how to communicate, but then good leadership is about backing it up. So far, so good.
You mentioned about your dad there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, life does happen
Yeah.
away from when you're chasing your dreams. Do you feel like you've had to have those talks with yourself personally and say that you have to be there, present with your family more? Because I know you mentioned your brother has that obsessive mindset towards rugby, and I know you don't watch a lot of rugby as a fan anyway. When you leave here, Carrington, on a weeknight, are you present with your family, or do you have to kind of snap yourself out of it sometimes?
I really struggle with it, Jamal. I do struggle, because it's all encompassing. It's a vocation, it's not a job. And a lot of the inspiration or the initiatives you come up with, whether it be strategy or how you want to approach the lads or who you want to speak to, doesn't come in the times when you're in these four walls. It comes when you're at home, or when you're driving the car, or where you're on the toilet and you get these kind of flashes of inspiration. You're like, right, yeah, that's what I need to get after tomorrow. So somewhere the brain's always ticking. But I make sure I'm at home by kind of 6 o'clock every night, so I can have food, break bread with my missus, play with my kid to some degree. And then if I've got extra work to do, I'll top up a bit later. So that's the one stipulation. Swimming 4:30 on a Thursday and home every night for 6 to break bread.
Now, unfortunately, your playing career, it ended very early, didn't it? You had a back injury that put that to an end. That's going to obviously teach you a lot in terms of adapting to things when they don't go to plan. That's the nature of sport anyway. You have to pick yourself up when you're defeated on the pitch, but this is completely different. This is changing the course of your life. You didn't have any plans to retire at that age.
No.
How did you learn to combat things out of your control at that point? And was it like, what was your mental state like at that time?
I'm not sure I could say that the mental state has been in a good position since year dot.
Well, how come?
Well, because anyone who says they found some kind of state of zen,
It's impossible.
clearly is missing out on life a little bit. I think there has to be an element of self-discovery, understanding what's driving you, and then life has its habit of taking either chunks off you or shaping you, till you have to shift what your motivations are and who you are again. Next year is going to be different to who you are last year, and I think that for me is normal. It feels normal, especially when you're growing with a group who are 16, like some of these lads, and hopefully I won't leave until they're 30. That certainly happened in the last organisation. So you don't go on that kind of journey with them. You've got to shift and shape your own communication methodology as they grow from young boys into men, into kind of married husbands with families. You know what I mean? So I enjoy that part of it. So I don't think it's right to be stable and this is me, because you have no room for flex then, and then life does take chunks off you.
Yeah.
So I don't mean that in a bad sense. I think it's important that you should keep questioning yourself. The failure of my body that you talked about.
Is that the way you look at it?
I look at all the big failures in my life leading to the perceived success that most people see me as having. Like it's not the successes or the high points that have defined who I am or will continue. It's the failures that I've had and how I've responded to them that have led me to be in this privileged position, truly. Right from the off, right from coming home and crying because I didn't want to play rugby. Well, tackle then. All right, I'll tackle my way into an England shirt that broke my body. Right, so now what are you going to do? And that was the next question I had to my mum, like, what next, mum? She's like, well, what do you love? What do you know? 26, I'm like, well, I love the game. She's like, well, go and do that. And it was as simple as that, it was a decision made on the back of consultation with the people that I trust and love for where my heart was and what I wanted to do. And I won't continue to do this if I stop enjoying it or stop loving it. I don't find purpose in it. There's loads of easier ways to earn a living, but for me, there's none better way to live at the moment, because that's what it's about, isn't it? This is a vocation. So there's always a time for, I reckon, when things happen to you to feel like it's bad luck or you're cursed or there's or nothing's going your way. And then after that period of negative kind of externalizing, then you've got to come back to what you could do and what you could do better. And that's the internalization and reflection process that I talked about, that I try and do daily through journaling, that I do through conversations with my missus, that sometimes I do with sports hikes when things seem a little bit on top. I'm like, well, I'll just get some external soundboarding on this to understand where I'm at. And I've got mentors as well that help me with that. Bill Bezic, who who helped coach United to all the triples back in the 90s. He's someone I've got in my little black book. So there's many methods I have to help me reframe myself. Sometimes it's as little as an hour or two. Sometimes for some of the results and performances, it takes 2 or 3 days, but it's always the end goal.
And I'm guessing that was a big period of adjustment when you did join the Saracens coaching team, 2008, I believe. But again, it's moving towards things that are out of your comfort zone. It's moving towards those things that do give you those nervous jitters. Did you feel ready at that point? And what were the biggest things that you had to adapt to from the get-go?
I didn't go in there like a ready-made coach because I learned what coaching was on the job there over 10 years. A bit longer, 17 in the end, but I reckon 10 years I started to having it. I thought I knew what it was about. At the start, I was just a player that wanted to kind of inspire, well, an ex-player that wanted to inspire current players to do the job that I couldn't, you know. Now it's a bit bigger than that. There's up managing as well with owners, not just managing the players. I've also got to look after coaches and a high performance team. I've got to manage a medium-sized business of 150 people now, so it's a lot more complex than it used to be.
And obviously, you were very good friends, and obviously still are very good friends with Steve Diamond.
Yeah.
What was that experience like, having to follow in his footsteps here, having to follow in a friend's footsteps?
It was, the challenge was, it'd been here so long that the organisation was echoed of him in many aspects, of his management style, of the personnel that he'd recruited, both player-wise and throughout the system. And to get any kind of lasting change, you don't want to tear that down. You want to keep the elements that are important, but there needed to be a refreshing of the environment from where it had been. So that was the challenge. Trying to ensure that the hard work and the good things it put in place remained, whilst taking them to another level by way of performance. And for that, you have to reevaluate some of the values that were driving the club.
And how fast of a process is that when you join in a club like Sale Sharks, new DOR, you're trying to establish a new culture, you're trying to make sure that the players, the staff are on board with that new culture. How long does that take on and off the pitch? Because it's a brand of play on the pitch, as well as it is, you know, a brand of lifestyle here at Carrington as well.
Well, I believe we could have won something in 3 years. That's kind of what I promised, but pretty much stated to Simon and Michelle and Jed when I joined. And that was with the squad that we had at that point in time. We almost, you know, with that new DOR, got that spike in that first 6 months. It took us to a semi. And then the season after that, being post-COVID, was the season, I think, globally, we saw a lot of movement from professional athletes, certainly in rugby we did. So the squad that I thought I'd had and planned for was totally different to the one that I ended up having only a year and a half later. And that was because people wanted to move back home, because there was less money coming into the Premiership due to people trying to recoup money. Certainly owners and philanthropists who own rugby clubs, they were of that kind of demographic where they lost out quite heavily because of COVID. And so you got a big influx or a big migration, of players going back to home or getting more lucrative contacts from Japan from what they could earn here. And then we find ourselves a year on from that with a team that's settling, finally. So that was 2.5 years in. And we get to a final and we're winning by 60. So we still managed to almost fulfill that commitment, 2.5 years in. And that's where we're at now. All the evidence suggests that in any sport, cohesion's king, right? So the longer you keep good players together, the better chance you have of winning cups. most of our retention meetings are just that. It's no longer really looking for recruitment. We're just looking to retain the squad that we have, so they spend more time together to prove the stats right, that cohesion is king. A team that stays together wins together. So that's where we're at. So I would say, in terms of getting the squad that I've got, we're pretty much there. 1 or 2 players maybe for a bit of new blood. In terms of them maturing and reaching form, like watch this space. This year, next, the year after, we should be there or thereabouts.
Because it does seem that, you know, you're not just trying to win the Premiership with this squad. You're building a squad that's going to have a firm grip on that trophy for years to come. Like back-to-back retains.
That's it. That was the message. That understanding specifically how that worked at Saracens. As I said, like I was given the space to grow and develop there. So organically, almost, the squad grew together with the likes of Jamie George, Owen Farrell, George Crew, Jackson Ray, Alex Good. There's a lot there that stayed together for like 12 years, and we saw the fruits of that labour come through. We tried to fast track that here in a few ways, which is difficult to do, but 3 out of 4 years we got to the semis, which is showing signs of, you know, the direction that we're looking to continue. We've had 3 out of 4 most of our successful years out the last 20, and yet still it doesn't feel like it's enough. You know, we want to win it and win it again and again.
And how do you, because we all have that little voice in our head that tries to let self-doubt creep in. It'd be impossible to not have that, but it's turning the other way. When you're transitioning from the pitch, I'm sure you had that little voice in your head before you're going out on the pitch sometimes, but right now you're not playing, so you do have more people to converse with, more people to look after. How do you make sure that every decision that you have, you're firmly behind it, and do you ever second guess?
There's always an element of risk in every decision, particularly in sport, because the consequence, it comes, it lifts you up or it knocks you down, doesn't it, within a week, on a weekly basis. So I try, and I'm a bad gambler, because I know, like, you go to a casino, you're always going to lose over time. So I try to take kind of the risky decisions out of it, look at them objectively with good counsel, people I trust. So, you know, let's say recruitment or the retention, as we spoke about. I am aware that in other organisations, one person's been given that role, or the DOR is presented, right, you're like ultimately in charge of recruitment. And if he has like a bad month, you could take an organisation down with him. Do you see what I mean? So we've got a syndicate here. This is one of the things we've put in place, of an analyst who does all the stats analysis. I spread all the clips out between the coaches so we can all have a subjective view. So I'm getting on and all their understanding of that. We've got Paul Smith, who's our CEO, who's got a really good understanding of the purse strings. Now it fits the cap. And then we've got Simon Orange, it's his club, it's his money, but he's a really shrewd operator contractually in terms of how the jigsaw pieces fit into the salary cap as a whole. So with all that, I reckon we've got quite a well-balanced view of experienced people to make a good decision that negates the risk, and then we're all owning it. So yes, I'll have the final say, but it's not like I'm just going off my own understanding of the situation. And that, times that by all the different areas, the high performance area, selection week to week. The only thing I really have total autonomy over is the one-to-one conversations they have with the lads. And I make sure they're intentional as well. I don't sleepwalk into them. I don't see someone in the corridor and talk to about their selection, the reasons why, for or why not. I make sure I thought about them and I put them in something that they can understand. And I'm looking to reframe them for the week after or for that weekend. So that's the most difficult thing, Jamal. You've hit the nail on the head with all my rambling, is how you can make a lot of your interactions intentional with some thought and purpose behind, rather than from the hip on a knee-jerk and emotional. If you can take that, the latter away, by and large, you'll make the right decisions for the right reasons.
One of the key things you said at the beginning of this conversation was how important that moment was when your mum told you to get back on the pitch.
Yeah.
And when you're looking at legacy defining moments for athletes or coaches in sport, a lot of the time those moments are something that the fans have never seen. They're not something that's happened in a game, in-game environment. What would you say in your life, 3 legacy defining moments for yourself that have affected your career in rugby in a positive way?
Well, there's that one, you know, that's the first one. There's moving to Kirkham Grammar School when I was 15 from Bury, you know, into it was a school that enabled me to train like a professional athlete. You know, I was probably working harder than what the lads do here, and that's because I was uneducated. I just thought the harder you work, the fitter you get. And then upon injury, Eddie Jones taking me to Australia, because that was the crossroads between having me going into the banking world and dry my eyes on my £20 notes, you know, or going into rugby and living a much more frugal but enjoyable existence. So that was a turning point. Those 3, I guess.
And finally, this is a deep one, but how do you want your legacy to be remembered?
I want the club to be remembered. Like, I'm not too fussed around plaques or names on trophies. That looks after itself, but I do want this club to have an influence in young boys and girls picking up a ball forever in the north. I want it to be the bastion of rugby union in the northwest, and I can only have a little bit of an influence on that, as can Si and Michelle Orange and Jed and the players who hold tenure of the shirts for the brief time that they have. Like, they all have an influence, but for me to be part of that, and you know, for people to look back and be proud of this club and from being associated with the club because of the area that they live in, I think there's a bit of immortality there, isn't there? Within that, that's legacy.
Brilliant. That wraps everything up.
All right, cheers,
Really
Jamal.
appreciate your time. Thank you very much.